The Cubs start a series against the New York Yankees today, 4 games out of a playoff spot. But forget the playoffs, forget the no-hitter. Today is all about Anthony Rizzo. The Cubs legend makes his return to Wrigley for the first time since being traded to the Yankees at the 2021 trade deadline. So this episode is going to be all about Anthony. Make sure to like and subscribe. Drop your favorite Anthony Rizzo moment in the comments. And here's your invitation to our special show for 44. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Cubs Baseball channel. My name is Anthony Pasquale. You can find me on Twitter at ant_Pasquale3. You can also find the Cubs Baseball channel on Twitter, on Instagram, and on TikTok. We were pretty busy on those channels the last few days, posting different episodes and content from our clips here. So make sure to follow along on there and stay active as we continue to try to promote our Cubs content on different platforms. But like we said, today is all about the man, the myth, the Cubs legend, Anthony Rizzo. He's a member of the New York Yankees, and they come into town. This will be Anthony's first time playing at Wrigley Field since the 2021 trade deadline when he was moved to New York in exchange for Kevin Alcantara and one other prospect. There's not much else you can say about Anthony Rizzo. There's so many words that you would like to say about Anthony Rizzo, but nothing really does justice what he was able to accomplish here in Chicago. He was like the first priority for Theo Epstein and Jed Hoyer to acquire. He was here through all of the losing. He was here with this team as they built up to this juggernaut that ends up winning the World Series, and he was the catalyst of it all. I don't think you could find a player more integral to winning the 2016 World Series championship. You obviously see the banner right there. Nobody mattered more to that championship than Anthony Rizzo. It was fitting that he was on the receiving end of the final out, but he was just so important. The way he handled himself, he was such a leader in that clubhouse. The way he approached his at-bats, such a quality hitter, saw a lot of pitches, put balls in play, took his walks, got hit by pitch a lot, didn't strike out a whole lot, hit some clutch home runs, ton of RBI. He's just the perfect player for that team, and he meant everything. He was the captain for a reason. Trading him away was obviously the most stinging blow, and it's fitting that after all the players that have come and made their return, Jake Arrieta as a Philly, John Lester and Kyle Schwarber as a National, Kris Bryant as a Giant and then a Rocky, Javier Baez as a Tiger, Jason Hayward came back as a Dodger. I mean, the list goes on and on. Jorge Soler has made his trips back, but the only one who hadn't was Anthony Rizzo, and it's fitting that you can kind of close that book, that chapter of 2016 players coming back to Wrigley Field with the man who was more important than any of them in Anthony Rizzo. So I'm excited to see the thunderous ovations that he'll get, the tribute video, whatever the Cubs do to honor him before the game. Anthony Rizzo deserves every second of it. And this all is just talking about his contributions on the field. It goes without saying how much he meant to this city as a philanthropist, as a spokesperson, and as a giver of his time. Obviously, Anthony Rizzo suffered from cancer as a child, ended up beating it, has this insanely good, well-accomplished MLB career, but it didn't stop there. He continues to go back to the hospital to make a difference, to donate so much of his time and his money to cancer research, to children's cancer research. His off days in Chicago always featured a trip to Lurie's Children's Hospital, and he got to know so many of the patients. There was, I think, like a wing of the hospital that he helped pay for. There's the Anthony Rizzo waiting room, and he just made such a difference outside of Wrigley Field, just outside of the diamond, and he was able to make such a difference. And you guessed it, yesterday on his off day, the Yankees got into town, and where did he go? Straight to Lurie's, and he made some more connections with some of the patients there, and it's just a chapter of his life that he has made sure to never forget and to give back in any way he can, and you commend that. And then you see the type of person and player he is on the field. He was well loved by the fans, well respected by his teammates. you just remember in 2016 when he was mic'd up saying he's a glass case of emotion, just like all of us were watching the game. And then when Ben Zobrist gets the go-ahead hit his at third base, he was as excited as any of us that they won. And he became a Cub fan. And in my experience of watching the Cubs, there has not been a more important player to the history of this franchise than Anthony Rizzo. And I think you can make a very strong argument that Rizzo deserves to be in that conversation of Cubs Mount Rushmore. And not to knock Ernie or Ronnie or Ryan Sandberg or Fergie or Billy or any of those Cubs legends, Rizzo's got the title, and I think that makes such a big difference when looking at his Cubs career, because that was the elusive part that nobody else was able to ever accomplish. But as you look at his Cubs career statistics, he's first all-time in hit by pitches, 6th in home runs, 13th in RBIs, 19th in games played, 20th in hits, 13th in doubles, and 14th in walks. He was a guy that by the end of his time in Chicago made his presence felt on all-time Chicago Cubs leaderboards. In his career, saw 4 Gold Gloves, 3 All-Stars, a Silver Slugger, the Clemente Award, which is the equivalent to baseball's Man of the Year. He won that in 2017, and of course was a catalyst of the 2016 World Series team, received MVP votes, probably could have won it in 2016 if Kris Bryant didn't have as strong of a season. And there just aren't enough words to describe how much he meant to that 2016 team, how much he meant to the Cubs, and how much he'll forever mean to the city and to these fans. And I think he'll receive a welcome that is according to just how important he's been. I don't think this is the last warm welcome for Anthony at Wrigley. I think someday maybe a number retired or a statue or some way to commemorate him and the 2016 is certainly on its way. But I'm just really excited to see him back at Wrigley Field and to see the kind of love he gets that is well-deserved for all of the time he spent in Chicago, the way he was able to suffer with us with the losing seasons and be able to climb the mountaintop. It's just such an awesome piece of the puzzle and a fitting last guy to make his return to Wrigley Field. But as it stands right now for the Cubs season, just a 2.1% chance to make the playoffs. They're in second place in the NL Central, 4 back in the NL wild card as the Braves lost yesterday, but the Mets won. So the Cubs are chasing 4 games from both the Mets and the Braves, who are tied for that final spot. But like I said, today they take on the Yankees, a Friday game at 1:20. What a fitting way for Anthony Rizzo to make his return to Wrigley Field. For the Cubs, it'll be Jordan Wicks on the mound. He's 2-2 on the season with a 3.82 ERA up against Luis Gil, who is 12-6 with a 3.39 ERA. Excited to watch this game today, but more so just excited to see Rizzo back on Wrigley Field where he belongs. Nobody was more important to that 2016 team. So guys, thank you so much for listening and being a part of this show. Make sure to get in your comment section and give us your Anthony Rizzo thoughts and memories and whatever it is that comes to your mind when you think of the man that wore number 44. But for now, keep liking and subscribing, following us on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. And hopefully we're talking to you guys after the Cubs spoil Rizzo's return to Wrigley with a win tomorrow. Go Cubs.